If you're using AI like ChatGPT, then you know how to write prompts. And you've probably been told to write prompts like this. You're a real estate agent with 25 years of experience, or you're a social media expert with 1,000 years of experience.
And the reason we did this is because we thought that by telling AI the role it should play, that would in turn help improve the quality and accuracy of the output. But that's actually not true.
And in this video, we're going to show you the only prompting technique that's been proven to improve accuracy and the quality of the output from your prompts. My name's Chris Scott.
And my name is Kyle Troche. We're with the Marketing Club, and today we're exploring how to make AI useful, practical, and profitable. Let's dig in.
So Kyle, I find it fascinating that for such a long time, we were told that if you want to get a good quality output from ChatGPT, you need to give it and assign it a role. Meaning that, for example, if let's say I'm selling real estate and I want to have ChatGPT do some real estate related task, that I needed to say, you are a real estate agent with lots of experience. Or for another example would be, let's say I'm asking ChatGPT to do some kind of marketing related activity, me saying, you are a marketing expert with many years of experience. The idea was that by telling it the role, that it would somehow like change the quality of the output.
Yeah, in the early days especially, people thought that telling it you're a marketer with 20 years of experience, all of a sudden it would embody the persona of like Gary Vaynerchuk or one of the other expert marketers out there. And that's not the case. It was always just a means of providing some context for the AI model to grasp onto.
So if I were having it write an email, it's not all of a sudden going to have a higher quality open rate just because I told it that it's an email marketing expert. There are like reasons why you would still want to give it a role, or at least give it some context of a role. And that's really so that it knows what it's doing, right? Not so much that it'll take on that expertise, but just so that it knows what it's doing. I did come across a study, and in that study, they found like there were 200 different prompting techniques that they had documented. Wow. That's an overwhelming amount. In that study, it did mention that role prompting has its purpose, and with specific tasks, specifically expressive tasks. Let's say you were writing, or let's say you were summarizing, or let's say you were coming up with a script or something like that. By assigning it a role, what it could do is replicate a certain style or a certain tone, but it doesn't actually change the quality of the output. In that same study, though, it found that the only prompting technique that had been proven to improve the accuracy or the quality of the output for a prompt using AI is this technique called few-shot prompting. In fact, it said in that report that it can improve accuracy of your prompts up to 90%, which is like crazy. Right?
Wow, yeah, that's a big improvement. What exactly is few-shot prompting? And what do we mean by accuracy? How is it improving the output that we're getting?
So few-shot prompting, by few-shot, we're not talking about tequila shots. We're talking about few examples, right? So let's say you were asking ChatGPT to do something and you wanted it to produce a certain output. In that case, giving it examples of what you want or what high-quality outputs look like improve its accuracy. And by accuracy, I mean giving you what you want. So I put together a little example of a prompt, which is this one here. It's an email subject prompt. Let's say I've written a newsletter for my sphere of influence. And I know, because I've sent out newsletters for some time, that the difference between getting my newsletter open and read by my sphere of influence is the subject line, the quality of the subject line. And that's what we're talking about. The accuracy or quality is, in this case, when I'm asking ChatGPT to generate a subject line for me, I want it to get opened. I want the open rate to be high. Just telling it, for example, that you're an email marketing expert and I want you to write a subject line that has a good open rate doesn't give it enough context to do what it needs it to do. It needs examples of what you're looking for. At that point, then, it can access all of its memory banks. It can access all of the prior knowledge that it has that it's been trained on and say, oh, I know what you're looking for now. And now let me go see if I can replicate some of these examples that you've given me. So let's break this prompt down a little bit. I'll read this and we'll just read it section by section and then peel it apart. In this prompt that I've written, I am a real estate agent. Now, that sounds a little like role prompting, but actually, and it is, but I'm not saying you're a real estate agent. I'm saying I'm a real estate agent in this case because I'm giving it context. I'm saying, here's who I am. I'm a real estate agent. Here's the next context I've written in here. I have written an email newsletter to send to my sphere of influence. Okay. Really concise, right? Not being really verbose. I'm just telling it what it needs to know. I have written this email newsletter and I want to send it to my sphere of influence. Next section here is where we're actually giving it the instruction of what to do. Write a subject line for my newsletter content. Okay. That's all I'm doing. Write a subject line for my newsletter content. Now we're getting into the few shots. Here are examples of subject lines that have performed the best and their open rates. Now, here's what's interesting. The examples in this case are going to be much higher quality if I have the data to back that up. Instead of just making it up, I have the data to back it up. What might be useful is open up your email tool and see what the open rates were for the emails that you sent in the past and give it some examples of really good ones.
And just pull the past, like top performing ones that you've sent out in the past.
Yes. Now, and there's always a lot of context there. Like I put in 3 examples here: major announcement, and the open rate was 25%, and how to find an agent who can save thousands, that was a 28%. My summer trip to England was 38%. Now, there's a little bit of additional context here. I didn't include it in here, but like major announcement, those like big news or major announcement, that subject line usually gets a decent open rate unless you overuse it all the time, because not every announcement can be a major announcement. So there's a little context there.
YouTubers do this with their channel all the time, which is like big channel news, and then it's something really whatever on the inside once you actually open the video, so you can't overuse it. But if you do have a big announcement, it's something that tends to get a lot of attention.
And then the final part of this prompt is below is the body copy for my newsletter, and where it says, etc. I would just drop in there. So this is a really good example of few shot prompting.
Let's take a moment and actually like dissect this just a little bit, because I think you're talking about context earlier. And I think what this prompt does well is that the context gets narrower and narrower. So the goal here is we're writing a subject line for an email newsletter. Now, if you were to I need to write a subject line for this newsletter, ChatGPT, whatever LLM you're using, can go and grab context from the body copy, the actual newsletter that you're providing, and come up with a decent subject line. But it's still missing a lot of context. So I'm a real estate agent. That narrows the context. Okay, for my sphere of influence, that's another step down in that context platform where this is going to be a more personal style newsletter. And then now we're getting into examples of things that have actually proved well. So now we have the context of who it is, what it is, in specific examples of this group of people respond to this. And now what the LLM is going to do, because this is what it's really great at, is find patterns between the subject lines and the other context you provided. And it's going to be able to replicate those patterns in your new request. So that's why it improves the accuracy so much, is now it has things to latch on to. It has the context of real estate, your sphere, and then it's going to pick apart those subject lines in your copy for keywords, industry terms. It's going to reference the ones you have that got a response with best subject line, best practices and formulas. Look at which ones like your subject lines have played into, replicate those. And that's why it gives such a better response, is you're really giving it lots of evidence of what you like, patterns to follow, that plays into its strengths and what it's really good at.
Notice how in this prompt, it's not really verbose. It's super concise. The more information that it has to process, the more likely it is to get confused or just have too much information to be able to give you a high quality output.
I think just a little bit of a side tangent is that's why newsletters have seen such a resurgence recently, is because it's an authentic sharing of experience or ideas or thoughts that isn't so easily replicated. So if you're not doing a newsletter, you absolutely should.
This is a really good way then of being able to apply this few shot prompting technique. Now there's a bunch of other scenarios that we found or that we listed out that you could use using this style of prompting. Kyle, I think you mentioned one of the easy button ones was listing descriptions.
Everyone's used ChatGPT for listing descriptions. It's a great time saver. If you likely have a style that you developed, things about houses that you called out, context for your specific area that you like to hone in on, this is where few shot prompting is going to be great. So instead of just saying, hey, write a description of this listing, it has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, whatever, you can say, here are some I've written in the past. Pay attention to the types of things I like to call out and the tone and style of my voice, and then write a listing description for this house and give it a photo of the house and all the stats. And it will do such a better job of mimicking the style you've developed over time and latching on to the things that the expertise you would inject into your listing descriptions, as opposed to just going and yeah, hey, write me a list
Okay.
description for that.
Kyle, you mentioned for data and cleanup.
I think there's lots of examples where we have a spreadsheet or something that we want to extract information from. A easy go-to example is an open house. You leave there with a list of names to follow up with. You probably want stuff from that spreadsheet, specific notes that you've taken or something, right? So if you could give the spreadsheet to ChatGPT and say, hey, summarize what each person is looking for, and it will do a pretty good job. If you give it some examples of, in the first line, Chris said that he is specifically looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in this neighborhood. And then in the third line, this person said they're going to start looking soon, within the next year or so, maybe. You could say, summarize each of that data like this or like that. And then it will have things to latch on to and know what to look for. So you'll get a better response by taking the time to give it a couple examples of what you're looking for. And you can apply that to whatever sort of data cleanup you need.
You just gave me a really good idea. I'm just going to add this in as a note, like meeting note format. So let's say you're meeting with a client, you're doing an initial consultation, you're doing a listing appointment, you're doing a buyer consult, and you're taking notes, or maybe you're even recording it. If you have a particular format that you want it to output, so that you're like it's a really consistent output, you can say, here's the format that I would like, or here's the formats that I would like the information displayed. Just giving examples of here's what I want my outputs to look like is a good way to be able to use that few shot prompting technique.
Well, going back to the newsletter example we've been discussing, if you have a format you like, say you like to start your newsletter with, this is what's been going on in my life, because that's some people want to keep up with you personally, but then you want to share something real estate related, and then you want to showcase any featured listings you have. If that's a pattern or a format that you adhere to for your newsletters, you could give ChatGPT a few of those examples and say, walk me through writing this newsletter, ask me questions, but stick to the format that I've developed. And then it will pull all the information out of you, so you don't have to think about it so much, and be able to reproduce it in your voice in that format.
You've talked a lot about using ChatGPT or AI tools and having it replicate your voice. What do you mean by that?
We all have but it's the reason you can tell when somebody said, hey, respond to this email, and then drops it into ChatGPT and sends it back. First, when you took the time to write it, it's because most people won't actually train ChatGPT to respond in their voice or to write a promotional email in their voice. And it's very important, if you want people to respond to it and you want the emails to sound authentic. You can train ChatGPT to sound like it. This few shot technique that we've been talking about is a great way to do that. You can give it some examples of emails you've written for the specific context in the past, even as simple as, right, hey, here are like 3 sent Gmail responses to clients. And it will pick up on your tone, your word usage, length of your responses, the degree of professionalism you adhere to, even colloquialisms that you like, all that kind of stuff it will take into account, so that if when you use ChatGPT to help you respond and do it more quickly, it doesn't just sound like a AI robotic voice. It's your voice. It's using the words that you like to use and the style you like to use it. And that's where, creating better emails with ChatGPT really comes down to giving it the better context, which is what you want to do.
I put in this list responding to Google reviews. If you have a Google business profile, which is great for local SEO, if you want to get found on Google as a real estate professional, having a Google business profile is a good idea. And engaging with every single review that shows up on your Google business profile is one of the signals that Google looks at to decide whether or not it wants to put you in the top of the search results for local real estate searches. So that means literally logging into your Google business profile is one of the signals that it looks at, but also making sure you're very responsive to any of the feedback that you're getting, positive or negative. And you can give a few examples. So let's say you want your voice to be included in those reviews, but you also want best practices to be included in there. So you can include examples of the types of Google reviews that you've done in the past that you want to mirror, where you might have a format you develop where, let's say it's a bad review, and you've got a formula for a bad review, which is to apologize, which is to take responsibility responsibility and to be able to communicate forward action to resolve the issue moving forward. Not for that specific person, but for anybody else who reads that review, they say, oh, you took ownership of that and you're working to fix it. Also, if you get a positive review, you might have a certain way that you want to respond, saying, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and be able to fill in a little bit more. But again, it has to sound like it's in your voice, because any future person reading that review is going to see that you either took the time to do that or you ChatGPT that thing. And there's something about sounding like you that adds that authenticity that's going to give that person or future people that are reading the reviews thinking of working with you that sense that, oh, you know, I can trust you, because I know you're going to take the time to take care of me. You took the time to respond personally to that review, so I know you'll take care of me. So that's another way of blending that idea of your voice that you talked about earlier, along with some of the best practices maybe that you've developed for responding to Google reviews. You talked a little bit about the newsletter and blog, any form of content that you want to be able to create, whether for marketing purposes, for any kind of purpose. Real estate market report would also be a good example of that, of where we're producing content that we're going to use some capacity to be able to put it out there. Just giving examples of what you've been happy with in the past. Or if you don't have any prior examples, go and do some searches and do a little bit of extra research to get examples of what you like and what you're looking for, and include that as examples. And it's going to produce a much higher quality output. Just in this conversation, realize that I could probably do layers of few shots. To use the Google review example, I could do one layer of examples where it's, these are best practices that I'm looking for, and then a separate layer of, this is the voice that I want you to reply in, and giving different layers of shots or examples to improve the quality of its output, because it's not always going to be that one dimensional. It might have multiple dimensions of where there's accuracy that's needed, whether it's in my voice or whether it's in marketing expertise or real estate expertise or some form of legal expertise that I'm trying to get some knowledge about. So just using those few shots, you can see how you start to blend these ideas together. You've got context prompting through roles and giving examples, but ultimately it's about getting higher quality outputs or improving the accuracy of the results that you're getting from ChatGPT or any of the AI tools that are out there.
100%, Chris. And I think that's why it's useful to know these patterns and styles of prompting. The more you use these tools, they'll all start to blend together. You'll grab this one to get this kind of result and that one to get this other kind of result, ultimately being able to combine them to get the results that you're looking for. But you have to be aware of them first and what's possible and what produces the best results. And so that's where learning of these different varied techniques comes in handy.
Thanks for watching this video. We hope that this is making AI a little bit more useful, a little bit more practical, and a little bit more profitable for you. Definitely like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.